Well, it's always fun to make a video about one of these. This is a recent video from NASA. They are noting the way that stars form, and they're noticing something kind of interesting that they can't quite explain. So let me go ahead and play this for you guys, and then I'm going to explain it for you.
Astronomers have long thought that star clusters form when clouds of gas and dust condense, constructing themselves from the center out. Researchers combing through data have offered a different take now after studying two clusters, NGC 2024 at the center of the Flame Nebula and the Orion Nebula cluster with NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, and using infrared telescopes. Evidence showed that the stars on the outside of the formations were actually the oldest. Study head Konstantin Getman said our findings are counterintuitive. It means we must think harder and come up with more ideas of how stars like our sun are formed.
So NASA is surprised at why the stars on the outer part of the formation are older than they would be on the inner part of the formation. This is where looking at biblical texts and ancient texts are important, because they give us information about cosmology. Not just information about theology, but they also give us information about cosmology and the way the universe works. So what we see here is in Job 9:9, he made all the stars, the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellations of the southern sky. This verse is actually referring to the Orion Nebula. But if you take a look right up here at the top here, you see that the area that's being referred to is this area right here. This area right here is where NASA discovered a black hole, supposedly, for lack of a better term. And they discovered it 1 year after I discovered it, because I noticed in these cathedrals that they always had these angels circling around this bright tetragrammaton in the middle, which is the same as what we see right here. What they don't realize is that these black holes, or whatever these anomalies are, they're actually producing the stars. So if they produce the stars, then it makes sense that the stars out here would be older than the stars in the center, because they're actually emanating from this area. This is what we call emanation in the mysteries. And if we take a look at these other images, here's another image of the same area right here, which is the tetragrammaton. The stars are actually being produced out of this, what we call the invisible angel, that's also mentioned in the Gospel of Judas. For there exists a great and boundless realm, and see, Jesus teaches Judas about cosmology, the spirit and the self-generated, whose extent no generation of angels is seen, where there is a great invisible spirit, that is the invisible black hole anomaly, whatever we want to call that thing that sits in the center of the trapezium, which no eye of an angel has ever seen, no thought of the heart has ever comprehended, and it was never called by any name. And a great luminous cloud appeared there. He said, "Let an angel come into being as my attendant." A great angel, the enlightened, divine, self-generated, emerged from the cloud. And so this is speaking of emanation. Emanation being the very first point, which is right here in the center of the trapezium, and then emanating out. This is what we see. So the reason that NASA is scratching their heads is because they don't realize that the emanation occurs from the center area out, from the trapezium out, from that black hole, or whatever that anomaly is that we want to call it. Black hole is just a placeholder for whatever the anomaly actually is. I don't necessarily agree with thunderbolts.info. I don't necessarily agree with NASA's definition of it. I think it's something different. But I think it is the anomaly that we are all familiar with, the same type of anomaly that sits in the center of galaxies. But these areas produce stars from the center out. And I think that's what we're seeing here, and I think that's the reason why NASA doesn't understand it. So there you go, guys. There is more cosmology from the ancients showing us and pointing us to this area, pointing us to the emanation that occurs from the center out, which is the reason why the stars on the outside are actually older. Guys, take care. Talk to you soon.